Hello, everyone, and welcome to the last episode of our GradLab Miniseries on demystifying academia. Through the past 3 episodes, Dr. Hulya Kirkici, chair of the EC department at the University of South Alabama, has walked us through many of the key topics and steps for pursuing a career in academia, ranging from what's the big picture to demystifying your academic career. Today, we are thrilled to bring you our last topic: how does my graduate research affect my career? Dr. Kirkici will give us a 20 to 30-minute presentation detailing her perspectives after 30 years of excelling in the academic world, then open up the stage for an audience-driven Q&A afterwards. So get those questions ready. Our live participants may also leave their questions in the chat for afterwards. As a final note, I want to express the deepest gratitude from IEEE-HKN to Dr. Kirkici for championing this mini-series, as well as her extensive history in supporting graduate students and volunteering within the organization. Without further ado, I turn the stage over to Dr. Kirkici.
Thank you, Joe, and good afternoon, everyone. I am so glad that you were able to join, and for those who could not join us, this episode will be available later on in recorded form, and I hope as many graduate students as possible can take advantage of the presentation and sort of learn about graduate school transitioning to professional life. I am not saying that the graduate school is not a professional life, but it is just the first step of your entire career. So it's so important that we actually give you some feedback on what to expect and prepare you for unseen or unexpected circumstances. So as Joe mentioned, I am open to questions. My slides are very short, but I really hope that you will have plenty of questions and ask those questions at the end of the presentation. So as Joe mentioned, I am with the University of South Alabama, and prior to that, I was with Auburn University and spent 25 years there. And I started as a postdoc there and then moved on to a tenure track position, then finally advanced to for professor. Now I am at a different school, that is University of South Alabama, as a department chair. But throughout my career, I went through several stages of looking at different research areas and different opportunities, and work with many students and work with many professionals to really understand the science and technology and be able to produce the science and technology for community and for humanity at the end. So with that, I sort of reflect back to my background and my day-to-day activities these days, and really in my life in academia these days is I look at the electrical and computer engineering education and the impact of educational programs and students on research. And I mostly deal with undergraduate students and some graduate research projects. But most importantly, what we do here at South is we engage with students early on in research and get them onto undergraduate research programs in multidisciplinary collaboration platform. So that is really, really important, especially for the electrical and computer engineering focused profession and future engineers and technology professionals. As you are better equipped than I am in terms of technology, that technology is moving very fast. When I was in grad school, we had a very primitive computer. And I am probably the first students that actually used computers in grad school, and we didn't really. And my dissertation was written by typewriting, and I wrote it in handwriting, and then it was typed by a typewriter, not computers. So since then, so much changed, so many things happened, and with the internet and technology has grown. So I look back and I actually worry about our students and being able to prepare them for future engineering and technology professionals. So there's a lot to learn, there's a lot to innovate, there's a lot to be part of in technology. And really, academia is really not an incubator for research, but it is also a place for preparing students for engineering profession. If you remember, you are graduate students, you are really probably the 10% of the population that graduated from your peer group that went on to higher education. The remaining of 95% of those students went to professional life. So since this is a grad lab and we're focusing on graduate students, and I want to focus on what they expect after graduate school. And HKN is really good with helping students, and this is one of the things. So in academia, there are two components. One is the professors, the other one is the graduate students in terms of research and technology. Professors would like to stay current in technology to help the students to be successful, to learn the new technologies. That's their job. They have to do research and they have to involve students. Graduate students, they are interested in learning, exploring, and understanding the most recent issues. That's why you're here. You probably are the best of your class when you were undergraduate, and you always probably wanted to learn more and more, and you were excited about research. I'm sure that's the reason that you're there. Obviously, at the end of the day, you want to get a job, right? And you want to get a job and you want to make good living. But the job also needs to be challenging for you. If ordinary job was satisfactory for you, you wouldn't be in graduate school. So you need to remember that you are driven by you to be successful. So you gotta keep pushing and understanding you are capable and you will be able to do what you desire to do. So you applied, for example, to your favorite graduate school. Maybe you didn't get admitted, or maybe you did get admitted, and the graduate program, and you selected your research advisor and you started your work. You don't really think about the outside of your research and your close proximity, but you start learning about your project, continue working on the project, and present your research, write articles, and move on. So this is very hectic time for you in graduate school. And I tell this to my graduate students, my best times in academia were in graduate school. And I studied hard, I worked hard, but I also played hard, meaning I was engaged with friends, and I was engaged with social life, and I was engaged with music and entertainment and art. So this is your time. You gotta look at that and you gotta nurture yourself both academically and socially. So you finish your research, defended your dissertation or thesis, and looking for the next opportunity, and then you don't know what is next. So I didn't know what's next, and I had several options, several opportunities to follow. And I was during the time that the job market for academic positions were very, very tight. And and economy was pretty down, and for international students, finding a job in research laboratories or research oriented companies were very tough. So I didn't know what to do. As an international student, I thought about going back to my own home country and start academic job there. And I didn't know if I wanted to have an academic position here in the United States or a postdoc. In fact, nobody even mentioned postdoc as an option for next step of learning to me. And it just happened by accident that I took a postdoc job based on my advisor's recommendation. And it was a good thing. And I'm so happy that I did that. So, and you do that. So you don't know what is next, but you need to start thinking about it. Even if you have not started finishing your dissertation or thesis, you got to think about what is next. What am I going to do next? So that's so important, right? So you need to start thinking, what are my key focuses during my graduate work, and how can I translate this to an academic track or industrial track? What do I do once my assigned research is over? Do I continue with that same topic, or do I have to search for something relevant? And how do I build towards my end goal? What are your end goals? Do you know? How do I set my expectations and goals? So you need to start thinking about it now. If you didn't start thinking about it, and things will happen on its own. But don't stress out about all of these. You gotta think about it, but then you also have the opportunity now to talk about those to your peers, your classmates, and your advisors and your professors, and talk to everybody, anybody that you can see. Talk to your, talk to me, talk to Joe, talk to your professors. So they will have, it's not going to tell you what you should do, but they will have conversation with you. Those conversations will help you guide to answer all of these questions. Eventually, you picked your research topic in graduate school because that was something that you either heard of, or you studied in school, or you were influenced by a professor. You picked that. The way that I picked my research topic in graduate school was, at the time, optical communications were becoming very, very popular, and the lasers were just being discovered 20 years before, 2 decades before, and they were becoming plentiful in consumer field. And I just said, I want to learn about lasers. I want to build lasers. I had no idea what I was doing. So that's how I started working on optical field, working in the optical field, and that's how I picked my research. In fact, I interviewed my advisor to see if my advisor was what I was expecting to have as an advisor to guide me through this research. And so even if you didn't do that, you probably picked your research based on your interests. So do you continue with that same research? Most likely. Do you do the exact same research? Most likely no. You will do something tangible to what you have done in your graduate work, right? And you also don't know if you want an academic job or industry job. You don't know that. And you have to keep all those options open and learn. And so build and start to make goals for you, and eventually it will shape up. And it will come to a point that you will say, yeah, that's actually what I want. So remember, it is your decision, and it is your desire, and it is your understanding what you are doing. So with that in mind, what do my research contribution mean for my career field and personal skills? You started to question your research contribution. Is it another incremental work for your advisors? Most likely, yes. And is this the original work for your advisor? Maybe not. And sometimes it is. But you are going to be the expert on that very small incremental part of that bigger picture of research. And you will be the owner of that, and you will be the storyteller of that research. You have to own it, but you have to continue to build upon it. Once you complete your research, you need to find ways to use your research and training to discover what is next for you. So that is your research in graduate school is the building block for future. So what I did in grad school is building lasers. It was a gas laser, excimer gas lasers, and we we combined two different techniques of laser population and excitation process. And my research was really on continuous wave excimer lasers, which no one has done before. And again, it is combining several different techniques and engineering a solution to something that inherently is not possible. So what did I learn? Did I learn lasers, how to make lasers? Yeah, I did. But what I learned is I learned engineering, I learned design, I learned how to make something that is maybe impossible to achieve, right? So you got to think about that. The skills that you learn during that research is the most important part for your research. And because I work on excimer lasers and I work on high voltage, and the postdoctoral position came to me, and I didn't look for it. They offered me. They asked me to apply for that position because of my skills that I had in graduate school. And I had no idea where state of Alabama was when I was asked to apply and asked to interview. And I had no idea what postdocs used to do, should do, etc. But then once I started working on that project, and it had nothing to do with what I did in graduate school. It was on ballistic missile defense program, building big lasers in space, and was mostly space power systems. And it's completely different, but it is tangible to what I did. So that is, I think, is the key, being tangible to what you did. And skills that you may think that you don't have, you have. You have to look at those and you have to explore, okay, this is my research, but what did I learn along with that particular research? How can I use those skills that I learned to excel in my research in different ways? So you can look for similar work by others, search other opportunities to collaborate, or visit research groups or facilities and find companies that will value your work. And again, that's where your advisors and your collaborators and your peers will come in play, because those are the ones that they will be talking to you and telling their stories, and you can pretty much figure out, yeah, this is something that I can do, and you can apply. So it's really continuously looking at opportunities and finding what works for you, what doesn't. So how do you transition from graduate student to professional? It is tough. It was very difficult for me. First of all, I was most importantly, time management was very difficult for me. And meaning that in graduate school, we had a set schedule, meaning 100% in the lab, where we had some time, go out and have fun with friends. That was it. But when you have a real job or a postdoc, it's not. You have to be reporting to your supervisor at a specific time. You need to be there from 8 to 5 or longer if necessary. And you need to be there all the time to work. Even if you're not in the lab, you need to be present where you are. So time management was very difficult. So you need to be mentally prepare yourself for transitioning from graduate school to professional life. That's very important. I still struggle with that. I still struggle with time management as a towards the end of my career, I still have difficulty with time management. So first of all, then you start your writing and preparing your resume, and there are now tools that help you to write your resume. And I had no idea what resume was when I was graduating, and I didn't have many mentors, but whatever I had, they were very good to me, and they helped me. So you may want to get your professional development plans and start with your resume. Even at this age, you can just go ahead and prepare something and add on it. And then you may start thinking about interviews. And interview skills are so important. And first impression is very important when you're looking for a job. If you didn't have that, then it doesn't matter towards the end how good you are. You're not going to get the job. First impression. So that means that you need to be prepared for interview. And you need to have recommendation letters. Not every professor can write good recommendation letters. You may need to help them to write it for you. And some professors are good at talking to the people rather than writing. So you need to be able to figure that out and ask them separately, can you make a phone call on my behalf? And then the decision time, how do you decide? In my case, it was only job that I was offered, and I was asked to interview, and I was offered, so I didn't have to have that difficulty, and I took that job, and I'm so glad I did. But sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Sometimes you take the first job is offered, and it is not a good fit. Then what do you do? Right? You need to be prepared. If it is not a good fit, then it means that you need to be always current. You need to have your resume ready, and you need to be looking for something else very quickly. So you don't want to stay in a job that you don't like. You don't want to stay in a place that you don't like. You don't want to stay in a place that they don't value you. So you want to think about all those things. But most importantly, you need to find a mentor. Mentors are so important. And at every stage, not just one, not just two, as many mentor as you can. At this stage in my career, I still have mentors. And I ask them, those are my coaches and my mentors, and I ask them questions and I ask them feedback. You don't have to follow their advice. You just have to listen and learn. You have to have that relationship with people. And for each different types of skills you have to have different mentor. For technical areas is different. For professional life, it's different. For extracurricular activities, it's different. So you have to have plenty of mentors and people to talk to. So most importantly, it is your journey, it's your profession, it's your education, it's your life. So you need to be in charge of that. And I know if you are not, you would not be in graduate school. You're in graduate school because you want all the challenges, and you want all the excitement, and you want all the benefit of learning and being successful, right? So some people may think that PhD academic career is not for me, and they don't want to be in academia, and they want to go to research areas. In fact, none of my PhD students went to academia. I was surprised. And all my PhD students work for R&D companies. And I have, in fact, 3 in Intel. Go figure. But they all went to either national labs for research, or they went to companies to do research. So they're doing great, they're valued, and they're happy. But academic career is what we want to talk about today, and that's so important. So you need to start thinking about how do I remain flexible, and how do I remain competitive. That means you continuously read, you continuously review literature, you continuously learn about your research. How do I find opportunities? You continuously talk to people, you continuously read literature, you continuously stay current. That's how you find opportunities. How do I turn my research into grants and gain momentum? That is the hardest part. And in fact, today I had a junior faculty in my office and talking about, I cannot write proposals, and it's difficult for me to find opportunities. I know it is. So what I told them that the requests for proposals are written in very broad aspects. You need to find the smallest tangible connection with what you did and what they are looking for, and address that and write it. And you're not going to get grants or funding for your first proposal. It never happens, very rare. But what will happen is you will get feedback. That feedback is very valuable, and that feedback will help you to write better proposals, and next around and you will get funded. And you also need to think about, once I picked academic career, and how do I nurture my research? Again, you need to find collaborators and people to talk to and be able to expand on what you have done. And you need to find connections, networking, conferences. You need to go to professional meetings, conferences, workshop, local meetings, etc., and find people similar minded and similar focus areas and similar interests, so you can bounce back ideas to excel in your research in your areas. And then you also need to be very, very candid about your shortcomings. We all have our shortcomings, and I mentioned, and my time management is terrible. You need to realize that and recognize that and address it. And then you need to understand that until now you were the best student in your class and you excel to this point. But remember, every classmate in your class have been the same. So now all of you are average in your class, right? So you need to put yourself in a position that you are ahead. So what do? Beyond being intellectually capable, you also have to have other skills, extracurricular activities, leadership skills. Those will put you a little bit further, because in terms of intellectuality and your smartness, all of you are smart compared to many other people. But in your small group of PhD students, they're pretty much about the same, right? So you need to find a way that you will be above others, and when the employer is looking for someone to hire, you will be the one that they will select. So what other skills you can develop? So you need to start thinking about that. So going into academia requires a lot of thinking. Do you like students? Do you enjoy research? Are you creative? Do you like non-stop learning? Do you want to be do you want to do extra challenging work? Are you okay with getting paid very little? Pay scale, that's in academia is the lowest paid profession for PhDs. And the prospect of career growth and salary potential. And and the challenges of excelling in academia. It's very competitive. It's extremely competitive. Getting a job is competitive, and excelling is competitive. If I have a position open right now, and if I advertise, I probably will get about 100 applications. I'm gonna pick one. These are 100 PhDs, and I'm gonna pick one. I'm gonna pick 6 to interview virtually, and then I'm gonna pick 3 out of those 6 to interview on campus, and then I'm gonna pick one among those 3. So 1% of chance, right? So what do you do to make you put above everyone else? So that is very important. Now you got the job, academic job. Then what do? You cannot just stay and wait for your advisor to tell you what to do. That's not going to work. Now you are the boss. You are in charge of your own research. Your department chair or your dean is not going to tell you what to do. They're going to say, well, we want these many papers, this much money per year, and these many students you need to graduate. And they're not going to give you any resources. They're not going to give you any help. You got to figure that out. And for them to give you help, you need to ask. You need to know how to ask. So how do you choose, do I want postdoc or tenure track? And I think most likely I would say now do postdoc, because the PhD education in this country is not as sturdy as it used to be 30 years ago, meaning that students, the research is so competitive that the professors are really hurrying that research to be published as quick as possible. So the students are not really digesting the information as much as possible. So it's not baked yet. For the information, the knowledge that you gain during your PhD, for it to be baked, I think now postdoc is very important. During your postdoc, you settle in, you focus more on research, and you bake your research, and you become expert in that area or in that tangible area. And this is also the time to independently write articles, papers, independently start writing proposals. You may not be able to submit proposals, but independently write proposals and prepare yourself for academic career. Then apply for tenure track position. Once you apply for tenure track position, then it comes to how do you choose. A lot of people have different ideas choosing. Some choose it for locality and wants to be close to family. Some people choose it based on their research familiarity with that particular university, or some people choose it based on the salary. None of them are wrong. All of them are good reasons to choose. But in the long term, you also need to look at it. What type of resources and support I am going to get from this institution in the long run? Not short term, but long run. Is this a place that I am going to call home for a long time? Academic career is not like industry. You don't change jobs every 2-3 years. Once you are in tenure track, it takes between 4 to 7 years to become tenured and promoted to associate professor. And then another 3 to 5, maybe 10 years, depending on how quickly you do your research and your where you are, to become a full professor. And after you're a full professor, you don't stop. By that time, you already are addicted to research. By that time, you have the responsibility of taking care of your students. You have the responsibility of paying their salaries, and you have the responsibility of teaching them the research. So once you decide in an academic career and choose your university where you want to work, you need to think about that this is at a minimum 15 to 20 year commitment. So you need to think about it. Is this location, is this university, is this department what I want to work in? Because in academia, changing jobs so often will put you behind the curve. Because next job, after 3 years being on an assistant professor and you go to a different place, they're not going to hire you an associate professor. It's very rare. They're gonna start you as an assistant professor again. And that means you already lost 3 years. Okay, so you need to make those decisions very quickly. Of course, you don't make those decisions on your own. You talk to your peers, you talk to your colleagues and professors, and that's how you make the decisions, and mentors. So, oh, something is missing here. Well, I had a little cartoon that showed that lifespan of academic life, where you start and what you do, but that cartoon is not showing now. So unfortunately, I'm sorry about it. So in summary, you have to have a plan. It's never too late to make a plan. Start now. Use the resources that are available to you, and that includes coworkers, friends, and others. Believe in you, believe in what you are doing. And do you enjoy research? You need to keep asking yourself, do you really enjoy creating new technologies and new ideas and discovering new things? As long as the answer to that is yes, you're good to go. So that's all I have for this. Next bullet is really for those who are choosing engineering profession with a PhD. It's nothing wrong with that. It still has very good value. In fact, one of my my student is a senior research engineer at Intel, and very high profile position, and I'm very happy for that student. But you know, this is a choice. It's your choice. It's your decision. You gotta make that happen. Okay. So with that, and I'm gonna stop here and answer your questions. And in fact, I'm gonna stop sharing as well.
Wonderful. Well, first of all, thanks so much, Dr. Kirkici. It's always fantastic hearing you talk. We have a couple of questions in the chat, as well as I wrote down a couple of them, and a lot of them centralize around making that jump from grad student to postdoc. So to combine a few of them into one question here, that jump at times can very much seem scary, and it's not really given a guidebook for how to make that jump from PhD to postdoc. So from that context, what sort of strategies do you use to get noticed? And particularly about your work, what typically matters more, the number of publications or the quality of the work itself?
Well, so I'm gonna start answering from backward. A number of articles these days, people, well, we're all engineers. We like numbers. Counting papers is easier, but most importantly is, to me, is the quality of the articles. If you don't have quality of your work, you cannot keep publishing. You have to really have quality. So that matters. And you have to make sure that every article you write has quality, and every article is valuable to reader, and every article that you write will be used one way or another by others. That's very important. Otherwise, the articles that you write sits there as polluting the literature. Now, looking for a job, people will count, oh, these many articles, but so students normally get caught in that counting the number of articles. But from an employer point of view, and we all know the quality of publications, if they are published in IEEE journals, we always value them. If they are published in unknown publishers, open access, has no value. It doesn't matter how valuable that, it has no value. Okay, so you got to think about that. So the quality of publications and where it is published is important. Now, making the jump from graduate school to postdoc is scary, but you got to think about that it is hybrid graduate school. Okay, so once you think about it, it is one step above graduate school, a more mature graduate school, then it's not scary. So that's I think would be very helpful to many of you that think about it. A postdoc is a preparation for an academic career. So if you think of that, then I think it's less scary. And once you realize that postdoc is purely doing research without taking classes, and you also are a little bit more independent in your thinking and your research, that is very important. Did I answer all of the questions?
Yeah, I think so. That was great. As one brief follow-up before moving on to the next question, as a academic yourself, what defines a quality work? Is it how much it impresses you on the first read, the number of citations, or some other X factor out there?
Well, I think the quality to me is quality is different for different people. Some people just look at the citations, but the quality to me is it making this article that I wrote is going to make an impact in technology? For example, my area these days are space power systems, and there are very few applications and commercial applications of that, mostly defense area. When you think about the commercial products, technology versus what space power systems do is very small, 1%. That means that my articles are going to be read by 1% of the technology professionals, right? So if those people are reading, most of them are not going to write based on what I published. That means my articles are not going to get any citations. But I know if my articles didn't make impact in space power systems, and if my articles were wrong or incomplete, and engineers using my publications designing systems based on that and putting that system on space is going to be detrimental, right? So that is how you value what you do. So meaning your research, your technology, is it going to make impact on something? Impact on technology, impact on humanity. That is what you need to think about as quality. And I get it. It is like I said, we're all engineers, and I struggle with that every single time. We like to count citations, we like to count numbers, and because it's easy, we like numbers.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question, when looking for a postdoc position, what should we look at for a lab besides just for deciding whether or not a lab is a good fit? Is it the number of publications that mostly matter, number of current postdocs, where the postdocs go afterwards? If you were to do it again, what would you consider in a lab?
Well, I think the most important thing to look at if you're looking for specifically a postdoc job is this is kind of misleading. You don't do that. Only way to look at the postdoc job is to look at the people that work with your supervisor in the same area, because you want your PhD research to be matured and you want to build on that. You don't want to start a new research and go somewhere else and start new research. You want to be sort of follow up of your PhD work where you do your postdoc. And so this way you become an expert in your area. And if you're not going to be an expert in that area, then it's not going to help you. So look for places that your advisor or people that in the research area that you're in are working. Those should be the places that you look for. And then, of course, you also look at where do those postdocs, after they finish their work, go? Do they go to academia? Do they go to industry? So you got to think about it. And if your focus is in academia and people finishing postdoc going to industry, then maybe you don't want to go to that group. So you want to also find a group that you are personally going to get along well. And chemistry is always important. If you didn't get along with people, it doesn't matter how good research is, and it's not going to work out. So that's why you go to interview, and that's why you kind of look eye to eye to see if personalities are matching. So I think that's very important. So first of all, you need to look at the quality of the work of the group. You need to look at how well this group is functioning. And then you need to look at what is happening to the people leaving the group afterward. And are they in a good place or not? So are they productive? So those are the three key factors to look at it. Now, when I look back my postdoc experience, none of these applied to me. And I was the last of the postdocs that they had. And in fact, they had three, I think, total. But it worked out for me, and because I loved it and I learned a lot and I built on that.
Great, thank you. I think that handles most of the questions in the chat. I definitely encourage your audience, feel free to keep posting or unmute and ask a question to Dr. Kirkici herself.
Well, I had a question, a quick question. Um, so you kind of had expanded on the value add to your own research work, but you also encourage us to build on what our professors are doing. Now, in our university, sometimes we have researchers who are not actively pursuing research work, but they have done some kind of work on that frontier. So what would you suggest a person, like you had taken up something very new and you kind of implemented that in your PhD work? So what advice would you give somebody who is absolutely trying to implement something new, which might be a frontier of the grad work that the lab does in general, but it's new nevertheless?
Well, so research always have to be original and new, right? Otherwise, it wouldn't be research. So you have to find an idea, a problem that has not been solved. That's the important. Even the area that you're trained in, there is always going to be a problem that has not been solved and addressed. You need to look for that problem and you find that. So that's what you're going to do. In fact, the most difficult part of PhD program is finding the problem. These days, professors are not doing that. Professors have a problem and they're telling you, this is the problem I want you to solve. But when I was going through my PhD and before me, and we needed to find the problem. We needed to find the problem and then find the solution. So you need to, now that trend is translated into to postdoc. So when you get a postdoc job and they're expecting you to be part of this research, but you also need to be able to find a problem that has not been addressed within that scope of research group, right? So that will be your property, that will be your idea, that will be your future. So you got to look at something that has not been solved and nobody has looked at it. It's very difficult finding the problem, but that is what it takes to be a great researcher.
Great.
That was a very, very good question.
Yeah, I agree. To ask you another question, you mentioned during your presentation that a couple of the key skills to build as an early career academic is how do I make a CV? How do I do research proposals? How do I make a successful grant? And unfortunately, there's no classes typically offered on those subjects. So how do you get good at this? How do you start constructing these resources and setting yourself up for success?
Yep, that's a great question. The junior faculty I was mentioning earlier, and I was telling that the faculty that in my early career, I probably wrote one proposal per month. And each of these proposals were different, addressing different problem. And I look back and I said, that was stupid. Seriously. The reason is that that's a lot of work, a lot of resource, and a lot of thinking. So that means if I had those many questions or problems to solve, then I didn't focus. You gotta be able to focus on some area, something, and said, okay, this is the problem that I want to solve. Now, writing proposal, nowadays there are templates to help you, and there are trainings to address and attend and learn, but there are three critical points. One, defining the question. Two, defining the solution, proposing how to solve that. Three, what to expect once you solve that problem. So those are the three critical points. First, defining the problem, why, and then second is how you would solve the approach. And the third is, once you solve it, what is the benefit of solving it? So you frame it around these questions and expand. So finding the problem means that you need to do literature research. And once you do the literature search, then you know what everyone else has done. And then you know what everyone else hasn't done. So that's your thing. So these people that done, nobody has done this. Second, and those people have done similar things, have some procedures, but the problem that you're trying to solve may not be capable. It may not use the approach that others use, or may. So how do you engineer their procedures to solve your problem? So that's the engineering part. You got to look at the procedures that they did to solve the problem, and how do you use that and engineer it to solve the problem that you have. And then, of course, addressing the need or addressing why it is important for developing such a research is up to you. And of course, I'm talking from the basic research point of view. So there are levels of research. One is the basic research, and nothing happens. You solve a problem. It's so far beyond, and no one is going to use it. Then becomes a little bit more mature, and then the level 3, and then once it is level 4, that's where the commercial product comes up. So how do you progress that? And is that the path that you want to do, or you want to still stay basic research? One important part in academia is very few tenure and promotion processes will look at applied research as fundamental research, and they're not going to value that because those are close to maturity and you really cannot publish, and they will always look at the basic fundamental research. So that's the area that you can publish and you can make yourself known for that. So don't stick on applied research. Don't stay with, developing products or developing patents. It's not going to give you any publications because publications are so important in tenure and promotion.
Great, thank you. We have time for one or two more questions.
Well, talking about patents, though, we have professors out here who are endowed in, so and so endowed, and of course, we look at numbers. And speaking of patents, of course, international students have like bounds. So when you were doing your PhD, were you bound as an international student in doing some things that you now feel comfortable in discussing that we should be knowing as an international student or even national students, though?
So as an international student, it was very difficult to maneuver, and you don't know the culture. In terms of patent and publications, I've never been a fan of a patent. I value them, but so if the patent office gets 100 patents, probably one of them will be mature enough for the company to develop and produce product and will get you funding. But on the other hand, if you patent it, you cannot publish it, and that puts you a blockade, right? So that's why I never been fan of patenting. And also from my background, my bachelor's and master's were in physics, and then my PhD was in electrical engineering. So I'm really a more fundamental researcher, basic researcher. So that's why I don't see any value in patent for me. Although I did work on classified work, and same thing with classified research, even though if it is basic research, it's classified and you cannot publish it, but I found different ways of publishing the same work. So you can find different ways of publishing some of the patented work as well. But like I said, to me, I want to solve the problem. I want someone else to take my solution and develop it to a product. It's okay.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Well, I think that's all the time we have for today. I just want to thank
All right.
Dr. Kirkici one more time for not just the excellent episode, but excellent series that you provided through GradLab for HCAN and all of the graduate students watching either live or later on YouTube. It was truly a pleasure working with you. And if you have any further questions about graduate resources within HCAN or questions for Dr. Kirkici, feel free to follow up with either one of us afterwards. And with that, I'll say thank you one more time and good night. And thank you for everyone who attended live. Bye now.
Thank you, everyone.